Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning with the Path of Ish. Super excited today to be able to welcome back into the circle an amazing curandera who has been hard at work lately, living their lives, expanding, learning, growing, and creating some amazing cacao products, which we'll talk about later. But let's welcome back into the circle Jacky Belcastre. How are you, Jacky?
I am well. Happy to be back. Happy to join you in the circle again and on your podcast and with your audience. Thank you for having me back.
Beautiful. Well, the first time we kind of got together, we talked about, what's it like to grow up, right? Being taught in a tradition where the way that you're taught is not through books. You're taught kind of out in the open, right? The way that curanderismo many times is taught is just kind of everyday things. What herbs do you pick? What do you do? And it's a very different relationship. And I kind of want to get in a little bit to talk about relationship first and the importance of, and really the connection, right? How, when we talk about relationship here and these podcasts over at the Path of Ish, and that relationship of radical self-love, that it is not singular, it's not human-centric, and it really involves a deep relationship with all of the nature around you reflecting inside. So I know you've been on a journey lately, feeling things to the bones, Jacky. So I'd love to ask you, what is different? How does it feel different, right? In a body, in how to manifest when your idea of nature, right, is just, oh, this is this thing outside of me and I go to it. Instead of kind of the way you've been walking more and more deeply of really being able to connect to that nature inside of you. Does it feel differently? How does it make you relate to things? I'd love to kind of just open this up so we can kind of talk back and forth.
It definitely feels different the more I've been on the path of building relationships, building sacred relationships, not just in the human sense, but also in other kingdoms. So, like you mentioned, not human-centric. What I have really grown to have a deeper understanding, respect, and connection to is building a consensual relationship with these other kingdoms and with myself. So actually not just, like you mentioned, not just being out in nature and liking trees and birds and all the beautiful things that are part of our earth here, but building a consensual relationship with them, meaning that I am in a va y viene, in a give and take, in a flow that stems from consensuality, and it's been beautiful. It's a beautiful way of living in ceremony and honoring all beings and their sovereignty and innate wisdom and and my own. So it's been a it's been a journey, like you mentioned, the last several months and years, if I were really honest.
The power of consent is, some people find it alarming, right? To discover that your no means no, your yes means yes, and that it's not just human to human. And so I kind of want to dive into consent as a superpower and an amazing way to respect the plant kingdom. And you and I have had several discussions, between the last time we spoke. And just as we've seen the resurgence of plant medicine, or should I say, plant medicine becoming, como se dice, popular in the greater world, how does consent change things, Jacky? Because I know that you have been in circles where there has not been consent and been in circles where there has been. Can you kind of tell everyone else, right, how that feels differently, how that looks differently, all of that?
Sure. I would love to. And I would like to just reiterate a couple of things that you have mentioned before going there, that I know that you've mentioned in your podcast, several of times, because I too love your podcast. um, um, as I share my perspective, I just kind of invite you to just leave your wisdom at the door, as you say, Marita. As I kind of share my experience of being in circles and ceremonies and things of this nature with plant medicine, and that are consensual and non-consensual. So for me, I believe that every being has its way of communicating. And if you allow yourself the time and the not needing to be more important than the plant medicine or anything that you're learning from, you give yourself that time to ask, to approach, to see because you mentioned plant medicine, if those medicines are open to having a relationship with you. Just because we as human, two-legged, like things and want to, take part in things, whether it be because you genuinely want to and you feel like you're coming in a way that is centered in love, or simply because it's in style. Not everything is for everyone. And I think that's a really hard concept for people that don't have this way of relating to Mother Earth and other kingdoms. Not everything wants to work with you. And the truth is that, as humans, sometimes we don't want to work with another human. So taking that understanding and applying it to the sovereignty and the wisdom that every being has allows you to listen, to ask if they are willing to be in relationship with you, not just simply because you want to be in relationship with them. And it feels very different. It feels very different being in spaces of consent and reciprocity and, sacredness. It feels very different than just partaking in an activity, whether it be because you have the resources or the ability to, in any other way, it just, it humbles you. And not in a, you know, you're not good enough to play at the sandbox, but it humbles you because that medicine, that plant medicine may say, it's not time for you yet, or you need to mend certain things. And kind of going through that process whenever that plant kingdom says, okay, you're good to enter. I mean, how much more joy and peace and love can you go into those circles, because you know that they want you to learn from them and to be in their world. Same thing as someone knocking at your door and you're just like, I'm not ready for company because, I just got out of the shower or whatever it may be, and them just coming in versus you saying, they're out there maybe having to knock on the door a couple of times. And then finally, when you do open the door, because you're dressed and you're ready and you have some tea to offer or whatever, whenever that person comes in, how much more excited and ready are those people to actually be in relationship with you. So that is something that I definitely have seen, felt, and experienced with consensuality in the plant kingdom and all kingdoms.
Now, even at the human level, we misunderstand each other all the time, right? We misinterpret each other. And so now we're asking, people who might not have a practice, right, of living in the world or living in a way where they're talking to plants and birds and things like that. So if people are brand new, Jacky, and they're, again, as I always tell people, be conscious of the way that you bring in, that you communicate in the dominant culture, right? And so if someone comes from a background with a lot of dominant culture, right? And they're trying to learn how to even like listen to themselves, right? Which is a big, big step. What is that next step? How do you teach people? Because I know you teach people all the time, how to start building that relationship, how to start hearing, when they say to you, I don't hear anything. I don't see anything, How do you teach them to begin that relationship or start listening, not just to their intuition, but truly to the language of other kingdoms and how they relate?
That's a great question, Marita. I like to guide people back to themselves. A lot of times in the example that you've posed around people asking these sorts of questions or coming from dominant culture that they don't know how to quote, quote, hear. In that regard, I bring it all the way back to, can you hear yourself first? Can you hear and honor and respect your own desires, your own voice, your own breath, the way that you speak? Because to take someone, sometimes, everybody's in a different part of their journey, but in your example, saying that it's somebody that is completely new to this type of living in ceremony and relationship, consensual relationships, is, have you crossed your own boundaries? What is your relationship with yourself? So to tell someone, okay, go to the plant kingdom, or go to the trees, and to take them there, it's to take them sometimes, depending, like I said, where you are on your journey, it's almost to take them outside of themselves even further.
Mm-hmm.
So having them come back to themselves and to hear their voice, to know what your voice is very important. And that's where I tend to teach from, and then allow that to ripple out, because if you can honor, respect, and have consent with yourself and not cross your own boundaries, the likelihood of you approaching other kingdoms and other beings that are also just trying to exist is a lot. There's a lot. Your odds are, from what I've seen in my practice, the odds are higher. um, so teaching folks how to feel safe in their own existence, in their own body, and connect to their own voice is where I tend to start.
Beautiful. So let's continue on this conversation of boundaries and consent and possibility of learning new love languages, as I always call it. Let's talk about the love language of cacao. And I'd love, in your own opinion, you've had a long, long history with cacao. I'd love to hear, why do you think it's become so popular? What is, when you start to see trends, right? There's, you know me, I like popping out, 30,000 feet and having discussions, or 30 million miles. From that very, very large perspective, um, why is the plant kingdom becoming popular now? Why is cacao becoming popular?
Hi, Marita. I'll give you a couple of different, maybe not a couple, but what comes to mind for me when I hear that question, because I've asked that question to myself a lot. And I believe that cacao and the plant kingdom are wanting to make their existence known. They want to make their medicine known. But that goes back to consent. Just because they want to be known doesn't mean that everybody, needs to rush in. And I think that that's a little bit of what I've been seeing, is because there is that SOS, so to speak, of like everyone is hearing a little bit more, right? We have these conversations of spiritual awakening and people, empaths and um, energy sensitives, and hearing these calls. But I don't feel that people are then asking, having that conversation. So I do believe that the plant kingdom is calling out. I feel that there's a lily pad between the call and the action that is missing. Does that answer that to somebody
Yeah,
else?
I think it's great. I mean, I think also, if we have the diagnosis, right? I always like to talk about the diagnosis of these times, right? The plant kingdom has always been here, you know,
Oh yeah.
and again, it's again unveiling itself to a degree, um, because we're living in times where we have great, great need. I think they recognize the disconnect that we have, and so it, it has been a task of many people to be able to in their own way, right? Start connecting people back to that. And so let's talk about connection. And let's talk about how can we, right, if we start weaving this all together, this conversation of consent, boundaries, how to learn how to listen, and connection. What is the connection that the plant kingdom, even without consuming, for example, let's go to the tree kingdom. Thank you so much. What can even just observing the plant kingdom teach us about relationship, Jacky?
Oh, Marita, I love that you said that, because consumption, uh, to me, does not equal connection. I've seen many that consume.
I'm clapping. Yeah.
There is no connection. Snap, crackle, pop.
Yeah.
I feel that through observation, that might be also a beautiful lily pad to bridge into connection. Can you sit and observe? Can you sit with plant medicine, with a tree? Can you sit with the medicine and connect to it in that way? I 100% say yes, you can. I've seen it. I have lived it. You do not have to consume if you come in a good way, asking what it is that, because again, a relationship is based many times on communication, and not everything communicates the same way. And so I truly believe that you can connect with the plant kingdom through observation, through reverence, through witnessing, through sitting with. Yes, there are times where you are called to consume. However, we've talked outside of circles, outside of this circle, and since the last time I had the honor to be on your podcast, can you just sit and give space to the medicine and wait to be fully invited in, either through the medicine or the keepers that know how to respect and adhere of that medicine? Not everyone knows or wants to learn how to respect. Consumption it's a reality. And we can't approach the plant kingdom the way that we've done Starbucks, which is also part of the plant kingdom, coffee. You can't just consume and consume and consume and think that you're going to get the medicine out of it. And you shouldn't even really approach it in that way to get the medicine out of it. It's to be in relationship with the medicine. But I see a lot of times that it's just about how much and how often and how quickly. And we approach this the way that we do some people, other things in life, more is better. And today's feeling of ecstasy is not enough the next time around. And so necesitas más, you want more and more. And before you know it, you've gone from consumption to abuse.
Mm-hmm. As you're sharing this, one of the things that occurs to me that I'm really feeling stir is, we speak a lot, I teach a lot about how we've had that conversation. How can you become medicine? Becoming medicine is being able to really recognize you yourself, how you operate your medicine, your gifts, your talents, and how all of that works, right? And we think about then, when we take, medicine, if, even in, back in the day, hunting and things like that, you took on the spirit of the animal. We forget that what we're asking for, what we are sitting before, is the testament of a life that has been lived in a certain way. That is the medicine. I know that in, I think, a lot of circles, you testify or you give your testament, right? And what that is you're telling your story of conversion or whatever. And that feeds and fuels, the excitement of being seen. And we recognize, right? Many circles have this practice of testifying, or what we call so witnessing, the power of that. But that's what we are doing outside of human circles, is why we need to observe. How can you, quote unquote, take the spirit or the life of something and not know its life cycle? Part of its medicine is how it lives, how it roots, how it deals with change, how it evolves. That is what you're consuming. And unless you really start to observe and know that when you are approaching any kingdom, the knowledge that they are giving you is their testament of the life that they lived. How different would we even think of consuming if we knew that the medicine is that of a testament of a life lived? What do you think, Jacky?
Wow, wouldn't we solve a lot of the world's problems with that one? Um, I mean, you know, we hear a lot of times life is sacred. In many different contexts, that phrase is used, but we don't always apply it to anything other than human experience. I feel that if we were to have a connection and consumption that is based on observation of the essence of plant kingdom or other kingdoms evolution, I feel that we would be further along in our own evolution, because we are definitely not the wisest or the most intelligent beings. So I feel that there would be a lot more sacredness to all things, because we would see that we are all interconnected and we are all journeying together in our own on our own paths, but we are having a journey together. And I think that that would make this world a much more sacred and beautiful place to live. And I feel that with a lot of teachers and elders and the rising of indigenous teachings, I'm hopeful that that is the world, or the new world, as some call it in different spiritual communities, that that is the world that we are creating one of observing one another, honoring one another, supporting one another, and not just consuming our just consuming from one another, but building relationships with one another. Man, wouldn't that be an amazing world?
You know, I totally agree, and I'm so glad that you brought up that term "new world" or "new earth" because I have issues with that language because even it dates back to, quote unquote Columbus or other people discovering the new world. No, it was new to them. And so I really think like we have to be really cognizant of that terminology because again, the new earth, quote unquote, are just indigenous teachings that have survived colonization. And if we
Ooh,
continue
I'm so
using,
glad you said that. Yes,
because I think
yes,
if we
yes, yes. Sorry.
continue using the language of the oppressors, which is manifest destiny, colonization, and that's why we want to, new earth means we're going to go colonize something. Let's can we learn? Can we learn that maybe we're really just on a journey of remembrance? And part of remembering is accepting and not denying what has happened in that time of great sleep, of nightmares for some people, which has been the killing and the continued killing of indigenous people around the world. We have to face it. We can't just cover it up and call it a new earth. I'm climbing down soon, from this little soapbox that I
Mm-hmm.
have. But I think it's really important because it just, again, like this is where we have to be detailed. My teacher always tells me, Marita, you have to be very detailed and precise. And some of the precision that we can have is with our language. Can we be playful? Can we be curious about, am I using the language of a colonizer in the way that I talk about approaching the plant kingdom? Am I being a colonizer of the plant kingdom? Because it's happening. And if it's the only way that you know how to be in relationship, you have to face that in yourself. Because we all have it. We all have the colonizer and the colonized inside of us. And we get to choose how to approach things. There was never in the good old days, it was better. Because everyone, all of humanity, has always had the decision of how to live in relationship, whether it is to dominate or to find balance. It is the question, it is the lesson that we are here to learn. So, can we face and be conscious of that lesson? And as we bring consciousness to that lesson, let's talk about balance with cacao. So, Jacky, my friend, you work with cacao in many, many ways, not just consuming it. And I'd love for you to kind of share with us your journey of balance with cacao, that journey of consensual relationship with cacao, and where you're at now. You don't have to give us any backstory if you don't want, but what are you feeling alive now that you have learned, that you keep stepping in deeper into? What does cacao want you to tell and talk to us about?
Oh, cacao has a lot to talk to me about. um, often and often very early in the morning hours. Um, Cacao in this moment would like for me to share about how I have grown my relationship and extend an invitation if you work with cacao or are curious about working with cacao. I don't just consume, like you mentioned, I don't just consume cacao. I a lot of times just observe cacao. I give back to the land a lot of cacao. A lot is extracted and taken from the land that I am a steward of and in relationship with. And so when I started my journey with cacao, I heard Mother Earth say she was thirsty, so thirsty here where I am. And so I give a lot of cacao. I probably give more cacao than I consume. I also make products with cacao and cacao bean husk. I have learned her love language, and it is always evolving, which is a good thing because so am I. I've learned how to follow her lead and to listen to how she wants to be loved on or presented in ceremony and in circles. And, it's funny because as I'm sharing this, it brings me to that space of like when new parents, you know, like when there's new parents and they're like always in your face showing you pictures of their new child and they're like, oh, and look at him eating and look at him doing this and look at him, and they're just like, they can't stop like showing the pictures of their child in the bathtub, and all these things. And cacao is like, maybe I don't want them to know this part of me. Like, I just want them to know where I was grown. I don't want, or in another ceremony, like, I don't want them to know where I was grown. I want them to know some other aspect of me. So, really listening to how she wants to be introduced, loved on, presented has been a beautiful journey for me of surrendering to her intelligence and to her voice, humbling myself, knowing that I am no greater or lesser than her, and I don't have to take that on. But that definitely comes through from teachings that you, Marita, have been gracious and have permission to share. And there's that consent again. And in the same way, when I am leading ceremony or small circles, I am always listening to how she wants and what she wants me to speak about. And for me, that creates balance because it's not about me. It's about her medicine and very little about me. Of course, my medicine shows up, but it's not about me in these circles. It's about truly witnessing, honoring, respecting, and creating a consensual relationship. Something that you mentioned, Marita, when you said you were going to stop, that you were going to walk down, is shame. Like, as you were talking about, that, we can't just sweep this under the rug and we just can't just create this new earth. And something that I have seen is that cacao really helps with that softening of shame. Because, like you mentioned, we're both colonized and colonizers. And if we're not mindful and we're not watchful and we're not intentional and we're not slow with how we enter spaces and take sacred pauses, you know, I find cacao has really helped a lot of people in my circles that have a hard time with that decolonization word, very naturally go into unlearning and decolonizing without having to feel like, in a much more gentle way. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, it just shows us really the power of words and what we bring to them, the stories, right? And that's why we can always stay curious, even in our reactions, right? Even in the fuego that comes up when people are expressing themselves. And that's the power of really witnessing people and whatever they're going through, and not jumping to, again, like you said, conclusions of shame, that it is a reflection of you. And I think that's also, I think, a powerful thing that cacao teaches us, because she will show you, she is a mirror. She will show you exactly not who you think you are, but who you are, and who you are at that moment. And I think that's an amazing gift, to be able to have una medicina that makes you conscious of the power and the medicine of now. So, as we bring this power of the medicine of now, why don't you tell us what you're doing now, Jacky, with cacao?
Thank you, Marita. What I am doing now with cacao is honoring, respecting, and working with one of her beautiful layers. And it's the cacao bean husk. So, together with Cuatro Manos y Cinco Volcanes, we have created Hola and Aloha cacao ritual boxes that will be available for monthly subscriptions. And this is an amazing box full of cacao, love, and ritual and connection. So you don't feel that the only way for you to connect with cacao is solely through consumption, in the way of ingesting her. In these boxes, there is, depending on the month, we are launching this December. So the first box will be December of 22. Each box will come with a bath salt or a dry scrub, body butter, a candle magic that some may be familiar with, that is also part of Hola and Aloha. It also comes with a mini of cacao, ceremonial cacao, true ceremonial cacao. This is not powdered, from Cuatro Manos Cinco Volcanes. And then there is a very thoughtful item also in the box. This month, or the month to come, it's going to be Palo Santo. But there will be many things to come as far as a very thoughtful addition to the box. This gives you the opportunity to do ritual by doing bath rituals and candle rituals and cacao ceremonies and learning how to connect in a good way and to have more than just a weekly or monthly cacao ceremony at the full moon or the new moon, or this is something that you can create on your own, because I believe that you can weave your medicine, you can weave your traditions. So this box is for you to sit with and see what comes up for you through this personal ritual box. And it's going to look very different for everybody. But I was extremely happy to make these. These are Reiki infused products made with lots of love, lots of prayers. And I couldn't be more excited to offer these out to the public. And I'm so happy to be working with Cuatro Manos y Cinco Volcanes and Hola and Aloha.
You know, what I love also about these ritual boxes, and I remember speaking to a voodoo master in New Orleans, was, he does a lot of candle stuff. And he said, look, the candle is just to focus the intention. You have to have either a tea or a cacao or something that is part of bringing the medicine into the body. But there also has to be a ritual of cleansing and clearing or on the body. So this brings in traditionally a huge tradition of curanderismo of, it's almost like as above, so below, as inside, so outside, right? We are really looking holistically at the human vessel and being able to bring cacao and the medicine of cacao to the largest organ in your body, which is your skin. And so to be able to build relationship with your cascara, and the cascara of the cacao bean is really to be able to sit again with, we're going to, bring it together with relationship, with boundaries, with the right to be, with consensual, that power of consent and the power of living now. And how can we shed? And how can we grow? And how can we remember? So I hope that all of you are able to take some time and check out our new offering over at Cuatro Manos y Cinco Volcanes Farm. Check out also, we have some new trainings coming up in 2023 that we've already opened up since we had a waiting list already. So we're going through that. So we hope that we'll see you in one of our circles. And there's a lot of ways that you can just create your own ritual with our cacao. We have this beautiful other offering called 100 Cups. And so there are 100 meditations, right? It takes 90 days to create a new habit. So if you want to create a new habit of your own, we have the 100 Cup, and it comes with its own box. But if you sign up for the whole year, we have a way that you can get that beautiful 100 days in your inbox for nothing added. So check out the links. They'll be up soon, or reach out to Cuatro Manos or reach out to Jacky. And Jacky, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me and share with, again, the power of now and where you're at in your journey with cacao. And I look forward to more conversations together as we continue to weave, change, and evolve. And is there any last story, prayer, or witnessing that you would like to offer the circle?
Well, I'd like to just say thank you, Marita. It's always a pleasure to have these charlas, these conversations with you, and held by cacao and the circles that you offer. My hope and my prayer is that everyone that is listening takes a minute, a moment, a sacred pause to review and get curious about your relationship with the plant kingdom. And if for any reason shame comes up, I invite you to sit with me or one of the many facilitators that have trained in a good way with Cuatro Manos y Cinco Volcanes, and sit with us to have a cup of cacao to perhaps mend some relationships in those kingdoms. Thank you so much, Marita.
Thank you. And yes, please reach out to Jacky. She does amazing work, whether it's one-on-one, in person, or via Zoom, but you're also doing retreats these days. So check out Jacky's schedule. I highly recommend Jacky. We have reached out to her to do special prayers for our family over here. And so it is with deep gratitude, honor, that I bow to you, to your lineages, and to your people, and always your willingness, Jacky, to stay curious, to listen, to learn, and to continue to learn how to fall in love with this path that you are on, this deep medicine path of you being you. So thank you so much for shining your light, even sometimes when it's hard. So honoring you, Jacky. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Marita.
Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.